Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, sir. And so I got rank 51st this time, and this was my second attempt. And I was a student of elite, and I'd be briefly discussing about general studies, GS, how to go about it, what are the mistakes to be avoided, what books to be read, and most importantly, what not to read. Now we talk about general studies. So I think one of the common queries that ever since ever since the results have come, I've got this mini stardom status, and to be honest, I seem to be enjoying it. And one of the query that I come across very often is that how come there are students who do not clear even after having written 3 to 4 mains and being the so-called senior players, and how come some of the people get through even in the first or second attempt. So I think one of the things that I believe in GS, apart from knowing what to read, it is also important to know what not to read. You have limited time, you have a time constraint, you also have limited human capacity. You can't learn all the articles of Constitution. You cannot read all the magazines, you cannot read EPW, Yojana, Kurukshetra, Chronicle, Science Reporter, not all at once. And also it is not required. For GS, I would just give a very practical approach, which is our aim is not to gain knowledge or to get a PhD. We are not here to earn a thesis. Let's be very honest about it. Our aim is to score. And you'll only score when you have a width of knowledge instead of having a depth of knowledge in just a certain section. Okay? We don't have to earn a specialization. So make sure in GS, you avoid the common mistake of not being overwhelmed by information. You can take one magazine, stick to it, complete your NCERTs timely. There are the standard textbooks, for, let's say for polity, we know that Lakshmikant is the black book. For geography, we have some others. You have your class notes, which I think are very comprehensive, so you need not look any further. The more you will, perhaps stretch yourself thinner, your focus would decrease, and at the same time your confidence would also deplete. I tell you, I missed my Indian Forest Services mains examination final cutoff by 4 marks. That really sabotaged my confidence, and by then the civil services mains results were not out. So somewhere at the back of my mind I was thinking, okay, why did I read so many things? Instead I should have focused on one thing and stuck by it. So I tell you this out of my own personal experience and perhaps a failure. So the advisable thing is, do not get into purchasing too many books or reading too many of them. Stick to your class notes, stick to your NCERTs and the standard textbooks, and just one magazine. No need to subscribe to PIB newsfeed, Twitter newsfeeds, Quora, whatever. It's absolutely not required. It distracts you, in fact. More than doing any good, it distracts you. All the forums, whatever. Make a list of things to do and stick the books to read and stick to it, irrespective of what your friend is reading. Maybe he might have read the other book before you did. So no need to stretch yourself thin there. Stick by the standard books. Stick by the class notes that you have, and they will suffice at every stage of the exam, be it prelims, be it mains, or be it the interview. I tell you, in interview I was asked a question, a very basic question from optical fiber, which, since I hail from a BTech background, and that was a very basic question, but I could not answer it just because I thought, why would they ask such a simple question? So that's a fault we do. We think that UPSC is some giant unicorn and only the lucky few get selected. That is completely not true. If you are hardworking, if you are focused and systematic, it's definitely doable. Okay, I'm sure when Sir will talk about GS, he'll elaborate more on it. And talking about how to get good marks. So as I mentioned in sociology as well, that answer writing holds the key. The more you'll practice, the more you'll start thinking on your toes. Now, why thinking on your toes is important is there'll be unexpected questions in the paper. Let's be clear on that. The questions that you get in your mock test might or might not feature there, but there definitely will be questions which are unheard of to you. So, like in ours, in GS2 we had the McBride Commission. To me, even the question on judicial review, Coelho versus State of Tamil Nadu sounded completely alien. But there the trick is that make sure you attempt all the questions. Do not leave any question. Now here, we run the risk of, irritating the examiner by writing anything. So let us say in judicial review question, if I write something completely tangential, it can actually piss off the examiner that I'm trying to pull a bluff. And and mind it, the examiner is a learned person and you are just an examinee. You're just a candidate. So how do we save ourselves from that? We pick up keywords from the questions. So to give you an example, in the McBride Commission, they had mentioned that it was a UNESCO committee formed for so and so things, and what was it about and what was India's stand on it? I had no idea about it, absolutely no idea. But what I wrote was, I wrote something about UNESCO, that UNESCO is one of the arms and such things. So what I think is that might have at least fetched me half a mark, if not let's say a mark or anything. And trust me, in this competition half a mark matters. My marks are same as rank 50, just a number above me, but just that she has more marks in some of the common papers. So even a difference of half a mark or 1 mark can bring you from IAS to another service, can bring you from your home cadre to some other cadre. So it does make a lot of difference. Answer all the questions. Start thinking on your toes, which can only come with answer writing. And previous year's papers are your guiding light. Of course, the teachers who will guide you through the answer writing sessions, they'll prove very instrumental in scoring really good marks. And GS, I tell you, this year the highest has been 470. 470 is like huge. I've got a decent 427. So if you gain an upper hand there, not only are you ensuring your place in the PDF, but also in the desired rank, the desired services you want. So striking a balance between optional and GS is the key to get your desired service. And for GS, I think the answer format slightly would differ from your optional. In optional, do not write in points. This was something I think I was told at the very beginning by Sir. Avoid writing in points. But this does not hold true for GS. For GS, you can start off with a relevant introduction. And then, so to give you an example, there was the human trafficking bill which was passed in 2016 last year. That's when I was writing my mock test. So I started and there was I was supposed to write some critique on it. So I started off with reporting that India stands 3rd in the global slavery index. Then went on to write that perhaps what are the provisions of bill. So although I started off in a paragraph format, I then went on to writing the salient features in points. I just highlighted what the important, the keywords were, and then I concluded with a futuristic opinion. I said that if India was to cash in on its demographic dividend, it has to make sure that it curbs the flesh trade or whatever that happens in India. So a futuristic conclusion, I believe, is what that stays with the examiner when he's awarding you the marks. Because that was the last thing that he has read. So I think conclusion, as much as being good with your presentation, and of course having some content. It's not that you write anything, but then having some content with an equally good presentation will definitely fetch you above average marks. In some of the cases, to give you a hack perhaps, that let us say you do not have so much of content, it's not possible to know everything. In that cases, you can always resort to flow charts, line diagrams. So there was a question on national child policy. I did not know all the features, and I doubt if anyone would know all the features, because there are some 19 pointers out there. So what I did was I created subheadings: health, maternal health, early child care, and then I wrote 2 or 3 pointers out there. So by having written those subheadings, I believe I might have caught the attention of the examiner, and I do come across as someone that yes, I know something about national child policy, and I'm not trying to just write vague content. So these are presentation skills. writing subheadings, writing, using flow charts, using line diagrams. In geography, GS paper 1, make sure that you do draw some diagrams. You might feel that a certain question doesn't quite require a diagram, but I think that's where your own skills and your knowledge would come into play. In GS1 there was a question on air mass. So some of my fellow friends, they were like, there's absolutely no need to draw a diagram there, but then I did. You can show air packets moving and then some hot air rising and whatever the nuances of geography teach us. So these are something that will come when you write answers over the time. So once you are through with your syllabus, make sure that you do extensive answer writing. No compromising on that. Make sure you write it 2 each on a single day with a gap of 2 hours, and that will build your stamina. So what generally happens is, by the time we are writing our second paper of the day, we slightly happen to drain out. There is fatigue, and you're not as fresh as you were for paper 1. So make sure that, and that's a very silly reason to happen to us, because that is a personal limitation that we are bringing to picture, something that can bring us back in the entire list, or for that matter take us out of the list altogether. So don't let that limitation play a very bigger role when you are writing your answer sheets or when you're writing your mock tests. Take them very seriously, write them just like you are writing each the actual exam, and most importantly, get them reviewed. Get the feedback. Let's say if you're not clear on a certain thing, get to your teachers and ask them that where did I go wrong, and make sure that when you write your next test, you're not repeating the same mistake, because I think that's the biggest mistake you're doing. If you're repeating the same mistakes again and again, then that mistake seems to have hardwired into you, and you seem to have developed a trait of doing those things. So I tell you, one of my mistakes that I would do is I would juggle between blue and black pen writing, that okay, I've written a certain heading in black and blue. So I would actually miss out on a lot of time with that, because somehow I felt, no, it makes my answer look good. But it was actually very juvenile and, if I may say, pretty uncalled for. No need to use blue-black pen. I mean, you just highlight whatever the keywords are, whatever the subheadings are. Time is very important. You have to answer 20 questions in, let's say, 3 hours. You have barely 7 minutes for a question. You have to also read the question. So no need for such adventurism, no need for blue, black, green pens. Write with a single pen, underline the keywords. And I think one last thing that I would like to mention is that whenever you write your essays, make sure you do have subheadings. And subheadings like social, economic. So most of the time they'll give you a topic, right? A very broad topic. I wrote on innovation, and the other one was on cyber security and the related threats, or something like that. So what I did was I first gave an introduction, so and so, and then I would further wrote about the social aspect, the economic aspect, the political side of it. So those subheading enhance readability, and I think that does help you fetch good marks. So I think the crux of it is, as far as answer writing is concerned, if you make the task of the examiner easy, you are bound to be rewarded by it. So you can do that by presentation. So let's say someone has more knowledge than you but does not quite write that well. So he's actually at a disadvantage than what you are. So strike a balance between your content and presentation, and be assured of good marks. So I think that was my 2 cents, and I think for GS, Nikhil sir is perhaps a more appropriate person. He scored the highest marks, by the way, 426 in 2015 CSE. So over to you. And thank you for your patient hearing.
Well, thank you, Ila, and thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity. Since we have met many times before, and I have discussed my strategy for GS at length, and also Ila has covered the basic nuances of GS preparation very well.